Well, Nintendo will be getting their litigation gun at the ready, as is standard, due to these new leaks that have come out. And while, yes, it mainly revolves around the Starfield game that we're probably going to see this year, and a Legend of Zelda remake, and I can't help but feel intrigued. 2026 marks the 40th anniversary of The Legend of Zelda, originally launching back in February 1986. As that date passed, though, with very little fanfare acknowledgement from Nintendo, you couldn't help being a little bit scared, and all I could find around it was miniature weapons from the series in Japan, and they're Japan exclusive. They're apparently being sold in candy stores, so it doesn't really feel like, a celebration of 40 years. And with a series as iconic as this, it's only next to Mario in iconicness because it's been a key part of Nintendo's identity throughout the majority of its life within the video game industry. It just feels like a massive kick in the teeth to Zelda, Link, and all of us fans. Look, this isn't to say that we haven't been eating well the last few years as Zelda fans, from Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, Echoes of Wisdom, and the Link's Awakening remake. They've certainly been feeding our Zelda addiction for as much as our wallets will allow.
Shut up and take my money!
I'm bankrupt now. But the Link's Awakening remake is something that I kind of want to focus on here, right? It's the first major remake the series has ever had in its 40-year history, where most of the titles that they've relaunched, they've just been basically glorified remasters. The Wii U had Twilight Princess HD, and the Switch had Skyward Sword HD, but the 3DS also had Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time, but these were only really remasters that added a few quality of life improvements and implementations of the 3D technology, while of course retaining most of the authentic experience from the original releases. But Link's Awakening's remake a few years ago was completely different. It had a completely different art style that was built from the ground up. They played with this toy aesthetic that honestly I actually really liked that, to be honest. I was pleasantly happy to see it return with Echoes of Wisdom, which kind of felt like a spiritual sequel to the remake, and I kind of like that. I hope that they continuously do more games in this style. The remake also featured hand-drawn cutscenes bookending the game, which was a far cry from the sprites that they used in the original releases, but that was mainly due to hardware limitations at the time. I wonder if they had their choice that they would have had hand-drawn cutscenes in the original release, but unfortunately that's just not an acceptable point that they could have done at the time, as the Game Boy wasn't that powerful, but it was still an amazing machine. While not necessarily adding loads of details to the game, it did recreate it to be more accessible, and adding in those slightly different art styles, a very quirky art style as well, and of course having a creative dungeon that you could create at your own leisure was a very interesting touch, and then obviously that particularly got built on into Echoes of Wisdom. Remember here, Link's Awakening was originally a handheld title for the Game Boy. We have never had a remake of a home console Zelda. So this rumoured remake of Ocarina of Time will be a challenge for not just Nintendo, but the development team that takes it on. And that's a question that we all have. Will it be one of Nintendo's internal teams, or will it be one of their second-party teams that they often like to use? That is going to be interesting, and there's obviously going to be an awful lot of expectation around that, so it's a lot of pressure, and I really hope that they can pull that off. Now, I do imagine the remake is true. Many of the story aspects, I imagine, will be unchanged, almost completely, largely keeping it as faithful to the original as it can be, although I expect there might be a minor art style change, not a major one, potentially try and get it back in line with a more modern Zelda's a la Breath of the Wild, and maybe stealing some of the gameplay mechanics from that, although I doubt we'll be seeing the return of the breakable weapon system that somebody as a part of the Zelda franchise seems to absolutely love. I'm less keen. I do think we could see a stamina gauge, and I do wonder if they'll add any further side content to the game and further expand on that already pretty ahead of its time. See what I did there? Yeah, time jump mechanic and its effect on the world in smaller ways, as well as up-to-date recordings of the Ocarina's most iconic songs. Now, I hope they do sand off the rough edges. I mean, some of the graphics have held up exceedingly well, but you can tell that they are now somewhere along the line of 28 years old. And I do think that they can give us the game as it deserves to be. And they can use it as a true celebration of the series. Its 40th anniversary does deserve. It is one of the most iconic Zeldas that anyone has, and most Zelda fans will always look back at Ocarina of Time. Even those that weren't born when Ocarina of Time came out will still look towards Ocarina of Time, and I think some of that might come down with the fact that the 3DS had the remaster several years ago. That's the version of the game I grew up on. I remember having it on my 3DS. Did I finish the game? I can't remember. It was a while ago. But it would be nice to see some of the other Zeldas receive the same Twilight Princess, the game that would benefit from at least being available on more modern consoles, as the only way to play the HD version is with a Wii U. And nobody owns a Wii U, but at least that means that they aimed to do something for the 40th anniversary. And maybe we didn't see anything so far because they're still hoping to get it out this year. I guess time will tell on that one, and I'd say there are plenty of opportunities coming, and Nintendo are also spreading that love with Star Fox. Game rumours around that series too, and hopefully hyped up by the Super Mario Galaxy movie coming out later this year. Well, do you agree with me and hope that Ocarina of Time Remake stays as faithful to the original vision as possible, or is there more than you want them to change? And no, I don't just mean Navi. But of course, if you like the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. And make sure you leave a comment down below to let me know your thoughts too. And don't forget to check me out over on Twitch at twitch.tv/the_entitledgamer. I'm live Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday every week playing God knows what. Always different things, although recently it's been Monster Hunter Sundays. Everything else has been Wild, although Wild Arms 3, that's been great. Been playing a lot of that. I like Wild Arms 3. That's really good. I love a good JRPG. Bye!